All right, let's get your reaction to the audio and video of a disruptive protest at a news conference yesterday in Chicago that was critical of the Safety Act, and a single protester showed up with a sign, jumping around, yelling things, and the news conference was not safe enough to proceed, as I heard from multiple people in the area at that time in Chicago. Now, attorney Thomas DeVore, who's the Republican running for Attorney General, he had called the news conference to highlight his concerns over the Safety Act. And he had an ex-offender there that was talking about how the Safety Act's no good for ex-offenders and for non-ex-offenders alike, because it would give preference to first-time offenders to get out of jail with no cash bail, and a variety of other things. And you've got lawsuits from multiple states' attorneys against the enactment of this bill. You've got Democrats now looking at trying to change the bill. And we'll get to the audio and your reaction at 217-629-7970. That's the phone number for Springfield's Morning News on 92.7 WMAY, Springfield's News and Talk. But I want to first air some of what was talked about yesterday about the Safety Act from Illinois House Speaker Emanuel Chris Welch, followed by attorney Thomas DeVore, who held a different type of, it wasn't even really a news conference. He just posted a social media video at a different location after his news conference was disrupted. So here's how that back and forth went yesterday out of Chicago, with first Speaker Welch in front of the City Club of Chicago delivering a presentation.
The Safety Act is historic legislation. Historic. It's legislation that empowers judges and removes access to money from the equation. But some candidates are crassly trying to turn that into something ugly. In the House, we've already passed 3 trailer bills to the Safety Act. 3. That's what democracy looks like. But let me tell you what we're not going to do. We're not going to allow lies, fear, and misinformation to take the place of smart decision-making.
Right now, your legislature, some of the leaders, Mr. Welch is having a press conference today, and they're working in the background. They're trying to come up with ways to fix the problems in the Safety Act. The Safety Act was passed in the middle of the night, 3 o'clock in the morning in January of 2021, and it has a lot of problems. Those problems were created merely because the legislature didn't do what it's supposed to do, which is to vet these issues right out in the public for everybody to see so the people can participate. What are they doing now after they've been sued by at least 6 states' attorneys, both Democrat and Republican? They're trying to create solutions, according to them, by the same backdoor processes that caused the problems in the first place. So they've learned nothing. They've learned absolutely nothing. So they're going to try to put together some patchwork set of fixes that they think might work without giving the public any chance to participate.
So that's the real substance of yesterday's back and forth about the Safety Act, but all of that occurred after a news conference that Tom DeVore had called outside of the Cook County Jail to highlight the issues he had was disrupted by a protester. And here's how that went down. And again, I want to hear from you at 217-629-7970. Should disruptive protests be condemned? Everybody has a right to peacefully protest, but when they become disruptive, should those protests be condemned? I want to hear from you at 217-629-7970. Again, 217-629-7970. Here's what happened outside that news conference.
Thank you very much for attending here today. 1 second.
Free speech, brother. Free speech. I'm with me. You ain't with me. I'm with me. Free speech, Joe. Free speech. You ain't with us. Child fairness now. You ain't with us. I'm with me. I'm with the people. No, you ain't with us. You ain't with the people. I'm with the people. You're trying to keep Tom DeVore. He wants to keep people in prison. That's the law that he's fighting against. He's trying to keep people in jail. No, he ain't. He's trying to fight. He's trying to abolish cash bail. The Democratic Party sent him. Free them all. Hey. Free trial fairness now. The Democratic Party sent him. Free trial fairness now. He sent him. The Democrats don't Not for the death.
He
idiot.
sent him.
Yeah,
The
well,
Democratic
Barron
Party
Bailey,
sent
the
him.
GOP, the same
The
people
Democratic
who paid
Party
Tom
sent
DeVore,
him.
same people who paid
He
Tom
came
DeVore
in. He
to fight
came in for the
back.
Democratic
The
Party.
mask mandates. Hey,
He
how
came
many
in for
people
the Democratic
died?
Party.
How many people died in Cook
He
County
came in
jail?
for the Democratic Party.
And then Paul McKinley knocking a sign out of the masked protester's hand.
Now,
Up for yourself.
now, Joe.
Tom
Now.
DeVore is a fascist.
Now,
Tom DeVore is a fascist.
And the masked protester changes the sign to DeVore fascist. He then has a
Democratic
third
Party sent
sign.
him.
Well, Tariq
The
Pleasant.
Democratic Party sent him.
They killed Tariq Pleasant.
He
Continues to
worked for
jump
the
around,
Democratic Party.
screaming in front of the cameras, behind the microphone.
Say his name. Tariq Pleasant. Say his name.
Is this
Tariq
appropriate?
Pleasant.
217-629-7970. That's the phone number, and you can chime in live and local here. Again, 217-629-7970.
That ain't got nothing to do with us.
Free them all. Free
It
them
ain't
all.
free no all. Ain't no free no
Free them
all.
all.
Ain't no
This place
free
is
no
a
all.
torture center.
Yeah.
9 people died in the last 2 years.
Show your thoughts. I want to hear from you at 217-629-7970. We'll get your calls as they line up here. Good morning. You're on WMAY.
Yeah, I think that's just a state of where we're at. I don't see it changing. No one's being prosecuted for these things. I seem to see more of these coming up when there's conservatives speaking. The left is pushing back on them in a crazy fashion, like this guy here sounded like. I haven't seen the video. All I've heard is your audio that you played. But I don't see it changing. No one's getting arrested. There's no penalty for doing this. You just go and you bounce around, and you got crazy. And if there's some sort of security that would pop up, say, at that event that would push that person back, they would probably be arrested for pushing that person back. So I think it's just a sad state of where politics are.
Well, and I appreciate the call. I've had people tell me that they're not going to go and cover these types of events if they're on a public sidewalk, like this particular event was with Tom DeVore outside of the Cook County Jail, because it's unpredictable what could possibly happen, and it makes things less safe. You have every right to protest, and you have the right of free speech, and you have the right to peaceably assemble with people. But when does that cross the line? Does it cross the line when you become an agitator, like this protester, at least from my perception, seemed to be, jumping around, screaming, getting into the line of a camera, purposefully yelling things like DeVore's a fascist. Yes, the other gentleman there knocked the sign out of his hand. Who knows what happens with that? But still, that agitation, is that acceptable, or should it be condemned? 217-629-7970. That's the phone number here for Springfield's Morning News. You are on 92.7 WMAY. Your thoughts?
All protests are inherently disruptive. Where you cross the line is, say, the one in Portland, Oregon, where they took over the city, California, where they're blocking interstates. When they start breaking the law or become physical, that's when a protest is no longer lawful. But all protests are inherently
Disruptive.
So, unfortunately, our right to protest, even though they say it's peaceful, it is still disruptive, and there's nothing we can do about that part of it. But we need to stop the violent protesting like they're doing down, that's actually creating crimes, blocking traffic on an interstate against the law.
Or blocking the free movement of anybody is against the law. And you also got to think about, what about those who are inciting others to, or provoke others to act a certain way by their disruptive protest? These are obviously things we'll continue to talk about with more of your calls coming